Strange things had started to happen to me over the previous few months. For starters, I had took to taking more interest in what people had sitting in their drives, gardens, farmyards and hedges. I always still kept my ear to the ground for more motorcycles, but now I was seeing other people's rotten old junk in a new light. That light being cold hard cash. Once I got clued up about the value of cider fruit, courtesy of my new friend Neville, I was then cruising around peering up at folks' trees too. On the way to work in the mornings, rattling along in my little white mini estate, I would drive past a farm whose trees were absolutely loaded down bearing fruit. John the farmer was of similar age to my father, a bachelor in a trilby who had not married, possibly due to the scent of cow shit constantly emanating off of him. He had stayed at the family farm caring for his elderly father until the old man's death. John was a well-spoken, friendly chap whom I got along with just fine. Upon my arrival, we passed the time of day before I asked outright what he did with his fruit. Nothing really these days, seemed the general synopsis. Travellers had bought it in the past, but one group had allegedly stolen some tools, so he wasn't going down that route again. The upshot was that John took a £20 note off me and said the fruit was mine to do with as I saw fit. There was far too much to manage on my own. Nick wasn't about for a few days, and Keith was back at Paul's working. I took the old Bedford CF lorry down there to make a start, but the sea of windfalls alone would take days to collect up out of the grass. On my way home, I spotted my neighbour, Ian, wandering down the estate. Ian had been the lad who came with me two up on a Honda Express, with no lights looking to meet women a few years previously. I pulled the lorry over and he asked me what I was doing with all those apples on the back. I explained, offering him a tenner cash in hand per day to come with me and help out. This may not seem much nowadays, but YTS schemes of the day paid far worse than that. Apples were bloody everywhere. It took us 2 days just to pick up all the windfalls in the farm's front garden. This before we could put tarps down to begin shaking the trees. We would put the apples into buckets, then tip them into a wheelbarrow before pushing said barrow up a scaffold plank ramp onto the lorry and tip it. This to save carrying each bucket all the way to the lorry. Because the barrow was quite heavy when full and the ramp too steep, I would stand at the top on board the truck. Ian would get a run up, pushing it as far as he could up the plank, then I would grab it and pull the thing onto the bed. This all worked fine until a few days in, Ian slipped on a cowpat at speed halfway up the ramp. He fell over onto his side, the barrow full of apples veering off the ramp and ending up upside down on the deck. The casualty from this being a wheelbarrow handle to the lorry's back light cluster, and Ian with a sore lower back from rolling around in the dung. We pressed on that day till dusk. With mornings becoming colder as autumn progressed, the Mini was becoming a pain to get going. Each day I was having to bump start the wreck by pushing it down the cul-de-sac with the driver's door open, running by the side until some speed was got up, and then leaping in and dumping it into second gear. The engine caught and we were away, all this being observed closely by my ratchet-ass neighbours. The following day, to the cowshit wheelbarrow crash in the fruit orchard, I played the previous scene and then called at Ian's house just up the estate. I blew the horn, but he didn't appear. I was about to go and bang the door when his mother stuck her head out of the bedroom window, imparting to me in her screechy, brummy drawl that her eldest son couldn't move from his prone position in bed, this due to a spasm in his back from the previous day's exertion. I was back on my own again. I went to offload what was on the lorry at Neville's. Luckily, upon my return to the yard, Nick had appeared. I cajoled him into helping me with picking up fruit for a couple of days until Ian was up and about again. John wandered over. "All ready for the move out the back then, lad?" he asked. My perplexed facial expression gave me away. "You won't get that lorry in, though. Need a tractor and a tipping trailer, I reckon. Better come with me for a look," John said, heading towards the road. Stretching in front of me were 9 or 10 more large cider apple trees, the grass all round them yellow with a mass of windfall fruit, and plenty more above yet to drop. There was enough work for about 3 weeks at the pace we had been going at. John was right. The lorry was never getting in that field. I drove back to the yard and decided to fettle Dad's 1955 Fordson Major in the old Weeks tipping trailer, trundling back to John's on it later that afternoon. Ian was aghast when he arrived next morning in the Mini, after push starting it, of course. When the trailer couldn't fit any more fruit on, we would slowly make our way to Neville's, this being a chilly 10-mile round trip on a tractor with no cab. One afternoon left it a bit late to set off. With the autumn evenings drawing in and only one headlight on the tractor, darkness wasn't our friend, but we got tipped and, more importantly, paid and home okay. Ian confided in me towards the end of the job that at nights, when he closed his eyes, all he could see was masses and masses of apples stretching out in front of him. It wasn't easy work by any means, but being out in the fresh air on bright October mornings, with the birds in the trees, nothing to worry about bar getting the trailer loaded, it gave me a sense of freedom and an ease that life so sadly lacks for many people now. Hello there. Thank you for watching my video. If you enjoyed this and would like to see more, please subscribe to the channel, won't you? And also share and like. It really is appreciated. All the best. Cheers.